Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of Made with Magic. My name is Tavo and today we're going to be talking about how I made these. This was my first time working in foam on like this level. I worked with foam when I made the Spiral Hill, but that was spray foam. I made these completely out of insulation foam and like glue and skewers to keep them together. This was something that I've been wanting to do for a while. I wanted to do it last year, but unfortunately with COVID, we didn't know where things were going to be, so we waited until this year to do it, and I had a lot of fun. It's a pretty easy build. It is just a lot of detail, making all of these bricks and then painting everything by hand. But overall, I was originally going to make this out of wood, and then pretty much making the bricks out of foam themselves, but wood is really expensive right now, and it was cheaper to buy the foam material and make it out of that over the wood. And it's also lighter too. I think these, even with the lamps on top, I mean, I can lift them myself, but they're probably about 10 to 20 pounds each, so they're really easy to transport that way. This is going to be a two-part episode. Mainly the first one's just going to be all about making this, and then the second one is going to be what I did to embellish it the rest of the way. This video is going to run a little bit on the longer side than I wanted to, and that's why I decided to make it a two-part video. The second part won't be in time for Halloween, but this is transferring over into Christmas, so it'll be perfect for that. That being said, let's get right into it. So starting off here, I got an insulation foam board. You can pick this up at like your local Home Depot, or I'm sure Lowe's has them too. This is an 8-foot by 4-foot, and I believe this is 1 inch thick. And just to start off with these, I cut them in half lengthwise and widthwise so that they're 4 feet by 2 feet. Now, originally I was cutting this with a buzzsaw, and I very quickly realized that that was not a good idea, as the saw started to get hot and the foam started to melt onto it. So after realizing my mistake, I pulled out my hot knife and I cut the rest of them using that, and trying to keep a steady hand as possible, which was the reason why I chose to cut it with the buzzsaw in the first place, because I thought that would help me keep a straighter line. But in the end, it didn't really matter too much. I was able to do a pretty straight line with just the hot knife itself. Now that I have all my pieces cut out, I'm just trying to match them up best I can, trying to figure out what would be the best way or best edges to glue together, and then just spraying them down with water. This is an important step. I didn't know this at first, but most Gorilla Glue, if not all Gorilla Glue, you have to dampen the edges down first in order to activate the glue. And what's great about this glue that I'm using, which is the Gorilla Glue, it kind of foams up and it actually goes into the foam itself, so it gives you a good hold on it. But in the meantime, while it is drying, I am putting skewers into it just to give it a hold, because I can't clamp them together. I'm sure you could. There are like corner clamps that you could use, but I didn't have any on hand, and so I just used the skewers as a placeholder for now. Now, I had given those the day to dry, and I realized after they were set, they were way too thick. That's not what I had envisioned in my head. So I cut off 6 inches off of 2 corners and then glued them back together, and that gave me more of the look that I was looking for originally. Now, following the same process, I made 2 boxes for those pillars to sit on that were about 2 feet by 2 feet wide. And then putting on another 2-inch foam piece on top just to give it some edges and give it some interest. And then going in and filling in the cracks after everything is dry and I've cut off all of the excess skewers. This was kind of an optional step that I did here. I just took my Dremel tool and then a sander edge piece and just took it on the corners just to kind of dull them down and make them look worn out rather than straight. And then once all of that was done, I marked out where I wanted to have my bricks. This is something, the size of the bricks, you can decide on your own. I did about, I think, 7 inches wide by 3 inches tall. I can't remember exactly what I did because I know I had measured an actual brick on my house, and when I went to mark it on the foam, it actually ended up being a different size because the numbers are marked a little bit differently on the ruler compared to a regular ruler. It's like you have to add on an additional 2 inches to certain sides depending on where you have that corner piece. And then comes my favorite part that you have to have a lot of patience for. I took a Dremel tool along with a tool that kind of helps you keep the same depth across. I think I left it at a 1/4 inch depth. And it was this metal piece tool that was about 1/4 inches across. And I simply just took my time and traced out everything that I had marked out, and that was that for marking out the bricks. I will say, when you're doing this, make sure you have some kind of face covering to protect, your entire face, but more specifically your eyes, because the foam is just flying everywhere, and I've learned my lesson in the past to just have something to protect my eyes, because I just used to always get foam in my eyes, and trust me, it's not a good feeling. Protect your face. After that was done with, I glued on a 2-foot square piece of foam on top, and about a 2-inch, 1.5-inch just detail piece, just to give it more detail and interest on the top as well and hide that seam. And to give it even more detail, I marked off, I think, about 1 inch or 1/2 inch, and just shaved that down some. That way there'd be more like staggered like steps going up to the top piece of the pillar there. Now this here is a really fun part, but do please be careful when you're doing it. I am pretty much texturing the foam to make it look more like brick and cement by spraying it down with some water and then just taking a torch to it. Like I said, please be careful. The foam shouldn't like ignite on fire or anything, but I think someone had sprayed something near it or on it and it actually ignited part of it. You'll kind of see like a flash at some point if it hasn't passed already. So yeah, just be careful while you're doing this. Maybe have a friend on standby just in case of an emergency and you need the help. Now finally comes the part where we can actually paint these. First I'm painting them with a coat of Drylock, which kind of waterproofs it, protects the foam itself, and it gives it more texture to make it look more like cement and brick. I am doing only 1 coat on the brick and then 2 coats on the part that need to look like cement, because I'm not doing a lot of extra painting like I am to the bricks. So if there's like letters or something like that that need to be covered, it's going to need the extra 2 coats on top of it, whereas the brick part, it'll go away as you add more color to it. Now for the paint, I am using all FolkArt brand acrylic paints. I'll leave the colors that I used down in the description below, but I did mix like a good mix of red, orange, brown, and maybe a little bit of black. You're gonna end up using more orange than you think you will, and you want more of that orange look, orangish reddish kind of look, and it's gonna change over time and look more realistic like brick. And then going in with a sea sponge using brown, orange, and I think a little bit of red as well. You're just gonna give it some texture, just kind of pounce it on top, have the sea sponge wet, and just move the sea sponge around. That way it's not giving the same pattern over and over again, and it makes it look more natural. Now, if you are noticing some spots that aren't getting really blended in very well, I had a spray bottle on hand just in case, and I would just spray it down real quick and then put the sponge back over it, and that kind of helped dilute it down and soften up any of those colors. Now bear with me with the camera angle here. I couldn't fit this completely in because of the camera. This is a part where you definitely have to have a lot of patience, and you're going to take a small brush and just very carefully color in all of those grout lines. For this, I just used white and a little bit of black just to gray it up a little bit. And from there, we're going to start weathering the columns. All I did here was pretty much take some black and maybe a little bit of white into a spray bottle with either Windex or just plain water, and just spraying it down, leave it standing, and just let it kind of drip down and dry, and then you can go back and put more layers on as much as you feel necessary. And if it's too thick, just have another spray bottle ready on hand that just has plain water in it, and it helps run down the black a little bit more. That way it's not stuck in one area. And pretty much the final step to painting these, I took some white and just dry brushed it on. From far away it looks a little streaky, but after it dried it looked really good. It helps bring out all of those high points of the texture itself and makes it look more brick-like. And that's pretty much it for this video. The one thing that I didn't get around to filming was I did spray down the columns with this Thompson's water seal. That way it protects all of the paint that's already on it. So stick around, I will have a part 2 on this video up soon on how I did the signs, the bows, and pretty much everything else on this. And yeah, so stick around and I will see you in the next video.